everyone. Today I decided to make this video. I have been planning to make this video for a long time because I know that this video will benefit you, will help you, and you will learn how to save your orchid even if you don't have any leaves on your orchid like this. How to save this kind of orchids. You see in front of me I have different examples. Let's start from this orchid. First I want to talk about this orchid. This orchid I bought from Lowe's for $1. In my previous videos I showed you already. In two videos I showed this orchid. In first video I showed this orchid when I took my orchids to drink from rainwater. They were outside and I showed this orchid to you, and this orchid it had only one leaf here. Before leaving for vacation I watered this orchid and water stayed on the growing point here, and I didn't notice that. And when I came back from vacation, this orchid, it was dead from top. All the top leaves were decayed, and here was only one hanging leaf from this place. It had here was hanging leaf, and in no time this orchid grew its baby. See, this baby, it bloomed for me this year. I showed you in my video a simple recipe for orchids which triples the size and blooms in short time. In that video I showed you this orchid, and it had pink flowers. It was fragrant orchid. If you wanna watch, you can go to that video if you didn't watch yet. And from this I learned something, that orchids don't die if you don't throw away them. Sometimes we don't know and we think that orchid is dying and we throw away them. Before this orchid I throw away maybe 2 orchids because I didn't know that time that they can grow they can grow babies and they can continue living. And this is my first experience. And here I have second experience. Here this orchid, my husband brought it from his work. I asked him to bring this orchid for me. It was just in this situation, but it had pretty healthy roots, green juicy roots, when he brought it from his work. And even here I put the date, March 1st, 2019. And this orchid, when he brought it, had here green juicy roots. It had healthy roots, but it didn't have the top. The top part was decayed because they planted it deep in some, it was in long ways, and they planted, and on top they put something, and the leaves were in that beads or something, you know, it was in decorative ways, and that way they decayed this orchid. Probably they put water from top, and the stem they decayed, and they wanted to throw this orchid away, and I asked my husband to bring it, and he brought this orchid. It grew kikis from the root part from here, and what I did, how I took care of this orchid, here see this, this is the baby which I already decayed. This baby was growing from the root part, and whenever I see the top of the roots dry, I sprayed some water every day, or sometimes whenever it needed to be watered. That way I took care of this orchid, and I never watered it. You know how I water healthy orchids, I never water that, because you know, these roots, they don't have leaves. Here we don't have leaves, and the water, it cannot drink water. If I put too much, I could decay the roots. That's why I just sprayed the top of the roots to keep them moist. And then it grew the baby, and I rotted it. I will talk about this later. From these two orchids, I learned, and I have some experience from them. This orchid, I had already one leaf in this orchid, and it grew keikis. In this orchid, I didn't have any leaf, and it grew keikis also. That's why when I found these orchids from trash, you see on top of the table, I have lots of orchids. I found hundreds of orchids from trash. If you didn't know, if you don't know yet, you can go and watch my video. I made video about that. And among those orchids, they were very sick orchids, which were decaying, and they had fungus. They had mealybugs and all kind of diseases they had. That's why the owner of the nursery house, he threw away these orchids, and I took them all. I took care of them as much as I could, and some of them I already lost, but some of them I am still keeping. And here you see on these 4 shelves, I have those orchids which I found from trash, and they are filling my shelves. They are growing crazy now. Most of them, they bloomed for me. They grow new spikes in my house. They didn't have any spikes. They grow new spikes in my house, and you see, most of them, they bloomed out already, and I cut the spikes because I had mealybug problem with these orchids. I made about that video also, and it's very hard to get rid of from mealybugs. It's something, you know, it's hard to get rid of them. They lay eggs, and it's very hard. Okay, I don't want to move from the topic. Here I have orchids which were decayed from the top part. You see here, the top part was decayed, and it was left with 2 leaves, and still I am growing this orchid, see, but it didn't grow keikis yet. And here the same picture with this orchid, you see it was decayed from top part also. That's why this orchid was thrown away. And you see from under this leaf, here is new keikis growing from the roots. And here I have another orchid with 3 leaves, see, and the top part was decayed also. I cleaned it when I found this orchid from trash in Florida. In the hotel, I cleaned here with knife, and I put some hydrogen peroxide, and I dried here. It was very watery and smelly, and that way I cleaned, and I helped this orchid. It was my first help. And after 2 months, I have this baby, see, it's growing, and it's growing healthy. And in here, this orchid, see, this orchid, it's not growing. Something happened from this growing point, and this leaf is, see, it's fluffy, it's wrinkly, and it's soft, and but these leaves are healthy, and it's also growing baby from the roots. You see, baby is healthy. And here I have another orchid. I have lots of examples to show you today, And here I have another orchid. This orchid, it grew its leaf, the top leaf, and you see it has some strange shape of the leaf. The leaf, they have to be open like this, but this leaf is closed. I don't know why it grow like onion. You see, it's closed from each side, and it stopped growing. Probably that's why owners throw this orchid away. And here I have baby growing, and this baby growing not from the root part, it's growing from the stem. See, they act different, and you never know how they will grow their babies. And in this orchid, I have only I had only one leaf. Here I had only one leaf, and see, this leaf died. You see, it has some disease. It was diseased orchid. You see, from the leaves even. Most of them, they had disease, and I put some fungicide and I treated them. And see, and this leaf fall, and now I have baby from this orchid. See, it grew its baby from the root part. Here is the stem, and this is root part. From the root it grew this kiki. You see, and now it's growing. And in this orchid I have one leaf left. See, it was thrown away because they don't grow this kind of defected orchids. See, it's only one leaf, and it started growing baby also. Here I have baby, and this one, when I checked, I didn't see any babies from this one. And 2 days ago I noticed that something is growing, something is pushing the sphagnum moss, and see, here is huge leaf is growing. It's growing from the deepest part of the of this orchid. See, it's under the roots. Here is a stem, here is a stem, and see from where this leaf is growing. It's growing from the deepest part of the roots, and that's why if you don't know that orchids can grow babies even from this kind of situation. See, it's one leaf and decayed stem, no growing point, and still I have babies from this orchid. You see, and here I have these orchids, and I am waiting from them kikis also. See, I don't know if this orchid will grow babies or not. I am waiting because most of the roots, as you see, it's dead, it's dried, and it has only few healthy roots, not much. Most of the roots are dry, but I'm hoping for these roots. Probably this orchid will grow kikis, and I'm waiting for this. But when we come for this orchid, which already grew kiki, it grew kiki when it had green healthy roots, and most of time I don't have time to take care of these orchids. That's why sometimes they stay dry. Sometimes when I have time, I put some water from the top, and that way these orchid roots dried out. See, because I couldn't take care of this orchid properly. That's why. And I don't know if this orchid can grow second time Kiki or not. I don't know. I am waiting for that. But they, all of them, they grow Kikis. And if we really know how to take care of them, they grow. But here I decayed it because when I didn't see this Kiki, I sprayed water, and probably that water went to that Kiki which was growing, and it decayed. The water decayed that orchid. That's why we have to be careful. Now we know that orchids can grow if even they are dying, if they had dead top, they can grow Kikis, and we can save them. After I killed this Kiki, I learned something that we have to be careful while we spray water, and we have to be careful, and we have to check constantly if they are growing Kikis or not. It's very important to know if it's growing baby or not. And here in this orchid I had huge this orchid stopped growing from the top also, but it's healthy. I don't know, it stopped growing from the top. And this orchid grow its baby. It was huge baby. I think this size was baby, and it was catching its mother plant. And what I did when I had my on my orchids mealybugs, I sprayed chemical insecticide. That chemical insecticide it affected very bad on that Kiki. It killed that Kiki. After that, that Kiki stopped growing, and it had it had healthy roots growing from here, and it had two healthy roots already. I could separate it from the mother plant. It was big enough to be separated also from the mother plant, but it was killed because I put insecticide. That insecticide affected very bad, and it killed my Kiki. And from this I learned something. And what you have to do, the safest way to keep these babies alive, and how not to kill them, you have to water not from the top, we have to water from the bottom. How I do, I didn't water these two orchids yet, and I'm gonna show it now for you. And here you see, I didn't know that this orchid was growing baby, but I was not watering this orchid from the top because I already killed this one. That's from this I took my lesson. And now how I am watering these orchids, I take my water. This is water with fertilizer. Every time I fertilize these orchids, because I have to help them, I have to make them strong. I fill this plate, see how I fill, and I just put this pot. I take water. This pot goes 1/3 of it goes to the water, and this way I water these orchids. And this water goes up slowly. You see, I will raise it, and you will see. Here you see, it's 1/3 of the pot is sitting in the water, and this water goes slowly up and makes equally moist the medium, and it will not harm this baby plant. if I water from top, water by accident can go to this leaf and it can damage it. That's why it's very important to know how to water also, and also we have to feed. And here I have another example, which is which doesn't have any leaf. This example is exactly like this. In this orchid I didn't have any leaves when I found this orchid, but this orchid was blooming. See, it has 2 spikes, and after the blooms fall, these spikes, they didn't die, but this one is started dying now. It's yellowing now. And that time when the flowers were dead and fall, I didn't cut these spikes, flower spikes, because I didn't know if this orchid can grow baby or not, because to grow the babies they have to have or healthy roots, or they have to have at least a leaf. And see, here I didn't cut these spikes, and if this orchid will not grow baby from the root part, I could apply some kiki paste on the stem. And I was thinking about that, but it's nonsense. But you know, it's better to do something than not to do anything. That's why I left the spikes in any case. But now I don't need the spikes. It already has baby here, you see, and it's growing. And I water the same way. See, I put water in the dish and I place my pot. And this orchid I watered yesterday. I put this water yesterday, and see, water is growing up, is going up, and it's making the medium moist, but it's not soggy. See, here I have some pine bark, and on top I put some sphagnum moss. And I want to tell you something here. After they grow babies, the roots can die also, like in this example. Here I have one orchid which grow baby and the roots are dead. Here you see, I put in water and I placed this, you know, this is from, you can cut from the egg case. It's from the eggs, from the tomatoes, they come, and from mushrooms they come in this kind of foam plates. And I cut that, and I placed this around my orchid baby. Here I don't have any roots now, only strings, and I have this baby, but this baby doesn't have any roots. And even I cannot place this in greenhouse, because in greenhouse this baby can decay. That's why it's very high humidity there. And I placed it in the water. If this baby can grow new roots and continue its life, I will be happy. But I'm doing my best with this orchid. I don't know how it will act in the future. And here I have another example. I showed you already this example in my previous video. Orchids you can save. In order to save the orchids, you have to have either healthy, very healthy and strong leaves like this, or you have to have roots like this, you know. I told you already that it had healthy roots. Now it's drying slowly, it's dying. You have to have healthy roots or healthy top. That way you can save your orchid. And here, this orchid, when I was saving that orchid, it had only 2 leaves. These leaves were very healthy and strong. And after I placed it, I cleaned this orchid with potassium permanganate. I washed it, and you know, it had already dead roots and decaying stem. It was smelling very bad when I was cleaning that orchid, and you see now it grew 3 leaves, and I don't know how many roots it grew. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 roots it grew, and this root is drying. I don't know what happened to this root. I don't check this often, and I don't see it. See, this root is also something happened, and it's black now. I have to plant this orchid, but before planting it, I wanted to show you. That's why I didn't plant it yet. See, if they have strong leaves, they can grow roots. If they have strong roots, they can grow keikis. And now you know how you can save your orchids. If you have this kind of orchids, don't throw away. And I have to tell you something here. I could forget, but you see, good, I see this orchid now. If you have this kind of roots, see, this leaf was here and it fall. If you have this kind of roots, see, when I touch, it's dry, it's empty, it will not grow anything. You don't need to keep this kind of orchid anymore, because there is no hope to wait kiki from this orchid. It's dry. You see, these roots, when I found, they were dry, but they were green. It's green, that green from the algae. It was green from the algae. And here I did mistake. I chose for this orchid big pot. See, root is small, and I planted it in big pot. That's why these roots dried out faster, because they couldn't drink, you know, take moisture, all the moisture from this medium. We have to choose appropriate pot for the according to the roots, and that's why it was very thick orchid. And plus to that, I planted it in a wrong medium. That's why it's now dead. And I don't need to keep this orchid, but I kept it to show you this example also. That's why now you know how you can save your orchids in different stages. I hope that this video will help you to save your orchids, and you will benefit from this video. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe my channel if you didn't subscribe yet, and we'll discuss more problems and more success which is happening with our plants. Thank you. Bye.